Hello and welcome to Oracle 12c Database Profiles. My name is Steve Hamilton and I'll be the instructor for this course. Okay, let's get started. In this lesson, we will learn how to identify the Oracle database profiles, what the uses for database profiles are, and then how we can actually create an Oracle database profile. First of all, let's take a look at what is a database profile and what is its purposes. There are two main purposes with a Oracle 12c database profile. The first one is to assign system resources, like number of CPU cycles, number of concurrent sessions, the amount of information that you can read, basically overall limit your resources. The next thing it does is it enforces password rules. So there are two main components to profiles. One, assigning system resources. Two, enforcing password rules. Keep in mind, every user must be assigned one and only one profile. We can assign multiple profiles over time, but every user has to have a profile assigned and they can only have one profile assigned. If no profile is specifically assigned, the user will be assigned the default profile. Oracle 12c database comes standard with a handful of default profiles. One is called default and the other one is called monitoring profile. The other thing that profiles will do will enforce password management. By enforcing password management, there's a series of password rules that we can enforce. Certain things like password lifetime. Basically, how long is this password good for? Password grace time. Password grace time is after the password has actually expired, you have n number of days of grace. So if the password is good for 180 days, we have 10 days worth of grace, or whatever you've set up. So actually, the password would be good for 190 days. Password complexity. We can assign a series of rules or a database function that enforces password complexity. For example, the password must be a minimum of 8 characters, must start with a character, must have an uppercase, must have a lowercase, cannot be the same as the username, cannot be the same as the username spelled backwards, cannot be the same as the server name. So we can create a series of rules for all passwords that those passwords have to meet. And then we can also have password history. Password history basically says the number of times that you can reuse this password. And you can set up number of times or number of days, and that is mutually exclusive. You can enforce password history on times or days, but not both. In Oracle 12c, we have what's called a series of verification functions. Prior to 12c, we had a function called verify function 11g. Now in version 12, we had another function called Aura 12c verify function. And then we have one called Aura 12c strong verify function. These are Oracle supplied functions that you can assign to a profile that will enforce password complexity. First of all, you would have to run the script to create the function. Then you would assign that function to the appropriate profile. You don't have to use these functions. You can modify these functions, create a copy of them, create your own, and then use that. But these are just some of Oracle's supplied functions. All of these functions will be stored under the Oracle Home RDBMS admin directory. There's a specific script that has these functions in them, and that script is the UTL PWD MG script. So if you want to enable these functions, you would navigate to Oracle Home RDBMS admin, and the script that runs these functions is UTL PWD MG. Now keep in mind, we have 3 functions to choose from. The old one, verify function 11g, the new one, Aura 12c verify function, or Aura 12c strong verify function. The functions will enforce password in the following ways. You need to have a certain minimum number of characters. It cannot be the same as the username spelled backwards with a number, or the username reversed. It cannot be the database server name, or the database server name spelled backwards, or with a series of numbers appended to it. It must have at least 1 character and 1 alphanumeric. And they must differ from the previous password by at least 3 characters. Now again, this is just Oracle supplied function. If you want to take this function, create a copy of it, and modify it to your own business needs, you can certainly do that. Also, we cannot use certain keywords like hello, or Oracle, or manage, or welcome. Profiles can be created in SQL+, SQL Developer, Cloud Control, or Enterprise Express. Profiles will be valid for both pluggable as well as container databases. Again, this falls into the security context. So if you create a profile in a pluggable database and you move that pluggable database from one container to another, the profiles would go with. If the profile is created in the root container and will be shared profile, the name will be preferenced with something like C ##. By the way, that's important to note. Anything that you see or any objects that you see that with C ### or hashtag is going to be shared across all pluggable databases. For example, we've created a shared profile called GoGoProf. So here we've gone under the Security tab, and under the Security tab we will go to Profiles, and this is using Cloud Control. You can see that we have a profile already created. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new profile, and within that profile we've called it GoGoProfile. And you can see here the first general section is dealing with resource limits. If you see the keyword default, that means that these values will default to whatever the default profile is. Again, you can have multiple profiles within your organization, but every user can be assigned one and only one profile. If you want to enable these resource limitations, there is a database parameter that must be set. That database parameter that has to be set is called resource_limit. By default, resource_limit is set to false. So if you want to enable resource limitations, you have to modify the database parameter resource_limit and set that to true. Now if we look at password, here we're saying the password is good for 60 days. We have 10 days of grace. We're going to keep 3 passwords, a history of 3 passwords, and we do not have a password complexity function. Now down here we have failed login attempts. With failed login attempts, we can say the number of failed login attempts before we lock this account out. Here we have up to 8 failed login attempts, and then we can lock this person out by a series of days. Typically this is set into a fraction of days, like 1/1440. There's 1440 minutes in a day, so therefore 1/1440 would mean that we would lock this person out for 1 minute. But even if that does happen, you can still call up the DBA or somebody in the help desk and they can manually unlock your account as well. Now the other thing to remember with password management, we talked about with resource management, we have to set the resource_limit set to true. Resource limit does not apply to password management at all, so it does not matter what that is set to. If you have put in password limitations, they will take effect as long as they're associated to a profile. So here, I have created a new profile called GoGoProfile. We also have things like connect time and idle time. Connect time basically says if this user is connected for more than 480 consecutive minutes, disconnect them. If they are idle for more than 75 consecutive minutes, disconnect them. The actual SQL behind the scenes looks like this. Create profile, the name of the profile. I'm going to specify the keyword limit and then each one of those limits. Connect time is set to 480, idle time is set to 75. This password is going to be good for 60 days with 10 days worth of grace. They can reuse the same password 3 times, and they can have up to 8 failed login attempts. And then if they have more than 8 failed login attempts, we're going to lock them out for a day. So now under GoGo Cloud Control, we can see that we've created this new profile that's going to be shared. And the profile name is C ## GoGo_prof. Profiles that will be created in a pluggable database will just have a regular name and they will not be preferenced with C ###. Profiles are created in the root container should be named according to your naming conventions that you have within your own organization. And that would be something like C ###. Thank you for attending.